As the Secretary General, I had the responsibility of driving and leading internal coordination within the Governing Council. The chairperson, his role was to drive external, so it was more the diplomacy, and that's why we put a lot of time, we invested a lot of resources in building the brand, the Ayuktabe brand, because we needed somebody out there that would be representing the aspirations of the Southern Cameroon's people.
So as the first Secretary General of the Governing Council, you equally was accused of wielding too much power that shadowed that of the President. What were your role then as the Secretary General?
That was exactly that. You know, people who talked about the Secretary General was too powerful. I mean, people have always said that. It's always been there. Oh, Millan cannot be this powerful. He shouldn't be this powerful. He's too powerful. Interestingly, the people who eventually hijacked the interim government, that's exactly what they did. So was it a matter of being too powerful, a matter of, I envy that position so much, I want to take you out so I can take it over? When you look at somebody like Christopher Anu, do you think he's too powerful or was too powerful in the role he played? Because he was one of those people who was pushing that agenda. So it was never a matter of being too powerful. In every movement, in every governance structure, there are roles that need to be played. The role of a Secretary General is a very powerful role. You cannot take that away. The role of a Vice Chair, for instance, is a very weak role. It's almost insignificant. It's there to support the Chair. As the Secretary General, I had the responsibility of driving and leading internal coordination within the Governing Council. The chairperson, his role was to drive external, so it was more the diplomacy, and that's why we put a lot of time, we invested a lot of resources in building the brand, the Ayuktabe brand, because we needed somebody out there that would be representing the aspirations of the Southern Cameroon's people. His role was to go out there, be charismatic, meet with people, build and actually attract membership, but also attract friendly nations, attract friendly organizations, potential funders. That's the role of the chair. The role of the Secretary General is to ensure that you're running the organization internally. From all the units, the departments, everything need to be running smoothly. Now you have people who don't understand organizational management. They have very little knowledge of anything, or people who are just completely envious, or they want power. And the funny thing is that they eventually had the opportunity to wield a certain influence within the struggle. The question you should be asking yourself today, 5 years down the line, is what did they do with it? Where is the struggle today? Have we advanced or have we regressed? That's the question we should be asking. So was it a matter of being too powerful? I don't know. My biggest wish today is to have a very, very powerful SG. You have a powerful SG who knows what they're doing, who can run things, who can organize, put in place structures, who can mobilize resources. You're a very lucky person. Very few leaders in the struggle today can boast of a very, very good and powerful SG. So it was a lot of ignorance and jealousy and envy that was talking. And that's why when you asked me your question initially, why did you go quiet? The idea was, go quiet for a while, let them run it, and then at least we compare. We had 6 months. We built from scratch with nothing. Over the 6 months, what did we achieve? We say, for instance, maybe close to a year, if you take it from March, I think February, March of the first conclave to around November, December, when I decided to walk away. What did we achieve over that period? How many doors did we knock on? How many governments received us? How many countries? What kind of membership? What was the cohesion that we built across several nations? What did we achieve within that period? Then you see, take it from November, December when I walked away of 2017 to this day. What have we achieved? Was it a matter of a very powerful Secretary General, or was it a matter of a bunch of individuals who don't even understand anything about organizational management and structures? Because they eventually, most of those individuals, they've had their opportunity of leading. Where did they take us? You and Akwanga can do is pay your flights and come to this meeting. And he said, no, unfortunately, I cannot come because our flights have not been paid. And just before we had that meeting, one of our comrades here in SA had contacted me to say he's putting 10,000 on the table to pay the flights of Lucas and Ebenezer.
It has been said that you sideline other movements to join the governing council, as well as choose the ones that you want to work with. Did you ever do such thing? And if you did, why did you have to sideline other groups and choose the ones that you want to work with?
You see, what we are doing today with the Southern Cameroons Alliance is that we are going to be excluding certain groups and movements because they don't deserve to be part of what we are doing. And that is happening because we've learned lessons from 2017. The mistake we made in 2017 was that we opened our doors wide for every movement and every group to join. They came in with bad faith. So people say, oh, you sidelined. How do you call the person the architect of the unity platform? The person, why would you organize the conclaves, invite every single movement, pull them together, put in resources, take out 1 year of your time to build everything, and then you decide to sideline them? It was just malicious misinformation from certain individuals, power-hungry individuals. And I don't think in an interview like this, and after 5 years, is something that I need to be speaking in idioms. I think I need to actually start pinning it down to individuals and groups. I'll give you an example. Lucas Ayaba. He's one of the leaders of groups that we, and in fact, the very first ones that we invited to the first conclave. He traveled to South Africa around that same period, prior to the first conclave. I met with him. I called him. I'm the one who called him. We met in Eastgate in one of the coffee shops. I bought him coffee. We sat there and we spoke. And I said, listen, this first conclave is going to be happening in about 2 or 3 days. And we are expecting you to be part of the conclave. He said, no. I'm very angry that you invited us to the conclave, but you did not pay our flights, Akwanga and myself. But you're paying the flights of others. And I explained to him, like, listen, you are my generation. You claim to be the leader of a group, of a movement. The least your movement can do is pay your flight. We have opted to pay for everything else, your accommodation, your feeding, everything. The only thing I'm asking you is pay your flight and be there. La République has arrested our leaders in the home front. This is the one opportunity for us to unite, be solid together and beat this regime. We really need you to be part of this meeting. I would like for you to come. He said no. And I told him, listen, it's true. I have taken the decision to pay the flights of the other leaders. The likes of Anyangwe, Mfongalamfo, Augustin Dangam, Fongoji Dinka. These are veterans. These are people who are already on retirement. They're not earning any income. They don't claim to run some big movement that is having membership enough to pay their flights. The least you and Akwanga can do is pay your flights and come to this meeting. And he said, no, unfortunately, I cannot come because our flights have not been paid. And just before we had that meeting, one of our comrades here in SA had contacted me to say he's putting 10,000 on the table to pay the flights of Lucas and Ebenezer. I told him while we were sitting there, by the way, we have a comrade who has opted to pay your costs. He really wants you to be at this meeting. Your cost, your flight is paid for. I also want you to be at the meeting. And then he said, well, unfortunately, I cannot come to the meeting because I have a very important meeting in the UK. But Ebenezer will be there. And then he goes off. It's funny because when we met, I was telling him, listen, comrade, some of these guys you've met with them, you know them better than I do, some of the veterans. I need you to give me some advice. And he said, oh, forget about those people. They're a group of greedy people. What you're trying to do to bring unity of all the movements, it will never work. They are so greedy that nothing will work. It's just a waste of your time. And I was actually beginning to ask myself, it was worth it when I spoke to him. But we were 2 or 3 days from traveling. So there was no way we could cancel. Everything had been done. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because this same individual, Lucas Ayaba, a couple of weeks later, was on social media everywhere telling everybody that, oh, I did not go to the conclave because Millan sidelined me. He refused to invite me. So you have individuals. Second conclave, when we went, same thing, invitation was sent to him. He came to Johannesburg. On the day we were starting the meeting, he was in Johannesburg instead. And when they asked him, what did he say? Oh, I didn't go because Millan refused to invite me. And then from there, it started spreading. Oh, Millan sidelined certain leaders and only worked with others. I'll give you an example. There is an uncle of mine who used to tell a story. And he told the story of when they were in the village, they would go look for kola nuts. And all the boys in the village would go to one nap. They call it nap, the forest where you find the kola nuts. And on this particular morning, and they would go at about 4 a.m. On this particular morning, he decided to be clever and rather go to his own nap. What's the idea behind that? If I go with everybody, the amount that I'm going to collect is going to be too small. So let me rather go to the nap that nobody has gone to, so I collect more than everybody. And when he went to this nap, he met some, I don't know, he called it a devil, but some ghost that frightened him, and he left and got nothing. He came back with nothing. When you invite somebody and say, come, brother, let's work together and we progress together, in his mind, he thinks he's so clever. So he goes off to a meeting in the UK to go and negotiate with a lobby firm to make himself president of Ambazonia. And then ends up with this guy saying, you need to pay us $50,000 on a monthly basis for us to make you president. Instead of acknowledging his mistake, he turns around and says, oh, I did not go to the conclave because Millan refused and he blocked me from being part of it. And then that narrative started. And if you remember, I'm saying this because he's the first person who started pushing that agenda, that negative and falsehood. He made a speech at the end of the first conclave, moving towards the second conclave. And I remember very well because I was in Namibia. I had gone actually to try and meet with the Namibian government. And I remember sitting in front of the guest house I was staying at. And I listened to the speech that he made when he said, yes, it's true that unity is good, but sometimes not everybody needs to be in the same boat. Sometimes other people need to operate separately, and we need to respect the fact that people don't want to be part of the boat. If you remember, then that was followed by Akwanga, who was saying, why does Millan want us to be part of a united front? We don't want to be. He's bringing us back to La République when we used to have one-party political system. We don't want one-party political system. We want multi-party political system. We are not going to be part of that one party. We want to have our own separate because we need multi-partism. Because sometimes I don't address this, but then months later when they realize that this game is not working, they turn around, they say, oh, we did not join because Millan sidelined us. He didn't invite us. We were not part of. But of course, it's not true. The evidence is there. They did videos. They did audios. Those things are there. The problem is that they're playing on the intelligence of people who are naive. But our people may be naive. They are not stupid. Because after a while, they start to see, why is it that these individuals, for all the sabotage and character assassination they've been doing over the years, nothing seems to go. They've never been accepted by the people. So is it true that I organized this and sidelined certain leaders and chose to work with others? Definitely not. It's just a couple of individuals who were so greedy and felt that they were the natural. I have correspondence to this day when they are writing to me and telling me that we will accept to come to this meeting if you guarantee us that we are not going to allow a school teacher to be our leader. That's Tasang. And I'm saying, listen, guys, I don't determine who becomes the leader. Come to the meeting. The leader will be determined there. They refuse to come to the meeting. Then they turn around and they say, oh, you sideline certain leaders. So that's why today, like I told you, the alliance as it is not going to open its door to everybody. We can't. And if we do, the rules of the game, the rules of engagement will be so clear that we won't allow for that childish gameplay that they were doing some 5 years ago. It can't. And we will never win this thing if we continue to allow this kind of greedy behavior. For me, it's very clear in my mind. So Did I sideline certain leaders 5 years ago? The answer is no. Would I sideline them today? Definitely. No ways I'm going to open the doors because they don't come in to build. The experience over time has shown that whenever they've lost popularity and they feel like nothing is going, oh yeah, we are now ready for unity, we are good. And the naive people in our community start saying, oh yeah, you heard the speech he made last night. He's changed. We need to bring him in. You don't take a snake to bed every night and you pray every day that someday it's going to bite you. It's as simple as that. But they realized along the way they couldn't go ahead with this meeting without me. Why? There were certain aspects of the meetings which were held. These were very high-level meetings with some high-level personalities within the US government, but also within the private sector.
Taking you back in the governing council, when you resigned as the Secretary General, after that you still accompanied the President to his Meet the People tour to the United States. What role were you playing at that particular moment since you were no more the Secretary General? Why did you have to accompany him? And what was the purpose of such a meeting?
By the way, it was not a Meet the People tour. Remember that a lot of this I organized. Most of this I put it together. But as we did, like I said, over that period, we opened lots of doors. We accomplished a lot of things. You remember the time in September, maybe September, October 2017, we took a visit to the White House, for instance, and met with the leadership at a very high level of the White House. But as we went through this, my role, like I said, as a Secretary General, I did a lot of work. In December, it was in December 2017 when he went to the US, I was asked to come. I wasn't invited to this meeting in the US at the very beginning. Why? Because I had resigned and I had already taken a backseat and I was already focused on doing other things. But they realized along the way they couldn't go ahead with this meeting without me. Why? There were certain aspects of the meetings which were held. These were very high-level meetings with some high-level personalities within the US government, but also within the private sector. And many of these meetings had been initiated by me prior to the meeting in December. So they realized that they cannot just go and continue having these meetings without me. So my going to the US in December was actually to go and smoothen the takeover from where I left it to the people who had come on board into the IG, the interim government, like I had indicated. And in fact, it is during that particular trip in the US that I sat with SCCOP and we had a conversation where I told him, you know, I've made up my mind that this is the last of the missions I will do with you. Will do with anybody. I'm done, I'm out. So I didn't go there to accompany him on a Meet the People tour. I actually went there to try and facilitate the takeover. I promise I'm not going to be part of the government, but I'm going to do my very best to ensure that the takeover is smooth so that you can be successful. That's why I went to the US.
You have equally been noted for labeling some members within the leadership of the Ambazonian liberation as Bible-carrying Gambi men. And we have the stories going on that you had clashes with you on one hand and Tasang Wilfred and John Baakoro on the other hand. And we equally know about the incident of SCAPAC. How can you unpack this?
Well, I think that's a whole story on its own. I'm not sure where to begin. Yes, did I come up with that coinage of the Bible carrying Gambe men? Yes, I did. But it's true, they carry the Bible. Do they act like Gambe men? Yes, they do. They predict things of the future that don't come true. They tell lots of lies. They deceive the people. They hold the Bible on the one hand, they collect bribe with the other behind. They do a lot of things that make you, I think that's a very kind characterization. There is evidence to all of those things that I'm talking about. So it's not like something that I just conjured from my head. Now, clashes with Tasang and John Akuro. And again, these two go together. You have to know they always go together in lots of ways. when Tasang John Akuro was actually the first person, as we organized the conclaves, that took confidential information and discussions within the conclave that was being discussed and put it on social media. That was during the third conclave that Tasang chaired. And when asked to discipline him, Tasang said, John and myself, we are like husband and wife. We live together, we stay together, everything. So it is beyond my power to discipline him. I cannot discipline him. That was during the third conclave. It's on record. But this just goes to tell you the things that they did, from SCAPAC that you talked about, the fact that they were receiving kickbacks on a monthly basis. They were receiving lots of money from SCAPAC. All the evidence of that was there. And it brought a lot of bad blood. I remember having lots of fights with SCCOP at the time. The day we landed in Atlanta, I can still remember, we landed in Atlanta and we're driving into the city. And we're having this conversation and I'm telling him, I'm worried that these guys continue to embezzle money and we are doing nothing about it. And he's like, let's give it some time. Let's give it some time. The time will come when we're going to catch them red-handed. I'm like, what red-handed? The evidence is there. We are now sitting here with Tasang making a request for $2,500. He's been doing this consistently every month. What is he doing with $2,500? The clash and the fights and everything, it was nothing but a very simple thing. These guys got caught. I walked in, when I came in as the Secretary General of the Governing Council, I realized that there was a lot of fraudulent activities taking place. And I started digging. I asked for an audit. I started digging. I wanted to know the bottom. Where is this money going to? When you receive 500,000 francs and say that this is for printing of flyers and distributing them, we're talking, this is September 2017. Most of the major cities have been taken over by the military. There is no way, nobody can have the courage to go out there and distribute flyers, tracts or what you call them. So where are you distributing these flyers? Who is printing them? Where is it being printed? Can I see the receipt? Once you start asking questions such as that, then they panic. And what do? Interestingly, at that time, they were attacking other people within the governing council, not myself. When they realized that I was actually coming hard on them, they turned now towards me, and then they started attacking. Now you asked about why the bad blood and everything. For me, it was a very simple thing. You are in a position of leadership. Sometimes you have to take tough decisions. And for me, we needed to get to the bottom of this thing. So when Tasang went out there and started doing lots of videos, you remember 2017, I did not respond once. In fact, I never responded to Tasang until 2020. Never. Of all the things he did, I never went out there and did a video. I never responded to anything, in spite of the fact that I knew that he was the one embezzling money. He was receiving kickbacks while he was flashing the Bible. All these things that he was doing, I never responded. Why didn't I respond? Because I believed in the leadership and the ability of the leadership to take tough decisions. So for about 3 months of misleading the public, telling lies, running videos, I did not respond. When we went to the fourth conclave, I had expected the leadership to get to the bottom of this thing and act. We held meetings, the truth came out, he apologized for the things he did, he went down on his knees and begged not to be exposed and so on. And then a decision was taken to sweep it under the carpet. And that's where I got really angry. You don't do that. You don't destroy somebody's reputation. You destroy their name, character assassinate. When you get caught and there is no way out of it, then you say, oh, forgive me. Let's just sweep it under the carpet and move forward. And that's what they did.
But it has been said you kicked him out of the fourth conclave and asked the guards or the police to brutalize him.
No. Tasang participated all through the fourth conclave. What happened is that while we were organizing the fourth conclave, Tasang was secretly organizing a parallel conclave with all what I call the coalition of the wounded, the coalition of the dishonest. It was basically a takeover, what they had planned to do. And I remember having an argument with SCCOP on that because he wanted to invite everybody, the activists, a whole bunch of comedians. And I said, don't. If we stick to the idea of a conclave, and the example I've been giving for a long time is the original appellation and meaning of conclaves as practiced by the Catholic Church. When you lose a pope and in the process of electing a new pope, it's not all the priests and all the reverend fathers and bishops and everybody who goes to the conclave. It's a selected number of individuals who are qualified. These are the cardinals. For you to go to such a meeting, you need to be of a certain caliber, experience, and so on, and of course, character. So you cannot have a conclave in which you're inviting 40, 50 people. Most of them are on social media shouting at the top of their voices. In fact, the fourth conclave is exactly the seed that was planted and gave the evidence to the Cameroon government that pushed the Nigerian government to abduct our people. Why? Because we invited the wrong people who came there and gave all the information. When Tassang organized his parallel conclave in Abuja, together with all this coalition of the dishonest, with the thinking that they were going to hijack the conclave that was taking place in Kaduna. That was the game plan. But when they realized that it had failed, we made sure that it failed. What they were organizing failed. Tassang packed his bags the following morning and came to Kaduna and joined us. But when he came, the whole bunch of comedians came with him, and then came and they were shouting and banging tables and tearing things down and say, we're going to participate. We have the right to be here. There is no way we're not going to participate. And so the whole first day of the conclave was lost. Nothing took place. And I am one of the people. I said, this cannot happen. We can't let this bunch to come here and destroy what we are doing. So they have to go. And so those who were supposed to participate stayed. Those who had to leave, they left. So you had people like John Akuro. He wasn't invited. Who was he? He wasn't supposed to be there. He had to go. Alex Mbianda had to go. Mark Barretta had to go. Chris Anu had to go. What were they doing there? Who invited them? Tassang was there as the vice chair of the governing council. He stayed. He attended. You had somebody like Elizabeth Amba. She was representing Boston. She stayed. So a lot of the narrative that they put on social media is simply because we haven't been talking about them. But the facts are there.
Talking about Alex Mbianda, your name has often been cited by Alex Mbianda and Harriet when it comes to financial mismanagement within the struggle, especially when you actually talk of Deacon Tassang mismanaging funds, and you are equally being accused of that as well. What do you have to say?
Well, Tassang and myself, we are being accused of embezzling the same funds. So somehow, between the two of us, somebody was truly stealing money. So of course the question is, was it Tassang or was it Millan? The answer I've often given to this question is, for me, it doesn't matter whether it was Tassang or Millan that was stealing money. The bottom line is that it was swept under the carpet, and that was wrong. I had said it then when this decision was taken to sweep this thing under the carpet. You do this, you set a precedent. And when you set a precedent, it will come back to bite us. When the funds of my trip to Boya got embezzled and people started to complain, what was the response that many people gave? They said, well, SCCOP was embezzled and nothing happened. So why do you want something to happen now? It's a fair question. You see, in revolutionary leadership, you have to take tough decisions sometimes. And tough decisions mean that it doesn't matter whether this person calls himself a deacon and whether he's flashing the Bible. If there is clear evidence that he's been stealing money and that his acolyte has been channeling 500,000 francs on a monthly basis in the name of publishing or having a newspaper in Cameroon to publish on behalf of the struggle. Expose them and kick them out and put it out there so everybody can see. What you're doing is putting a deterrent. That means whoever tries to do this in the future, this is what is going to befall you. That's what we should have done. We swept it under the carpet and gave people like Alex Mbianda and Harriet Mbianda the narrative to try and divert attention from what they were doing, because Tassang was not doing this alone. Harriet was channeling the funds to Tassang. And when I went to Boston, I sat with her. Once again, we went to a coffee shop. She actually bought coffee for me. And I told her, you will have to resign. What you've been doing is wrong. You've been embezzling money. You've been diverting money, sending money to Tassang. What you're doing is wrong. You have to resign. She left that meeting telling everybody that she had recorded the meeting. And I've been saying for the past 5 years, release the record. They do this. You talk to them, they record it. And then they selectively publish what they want. And I've been telling, put the record for everybody to listen to. So what I find most interesting is the obsession that Alex and Harriet Mbianda have with me. I mean, this thing happened 5 years ago. Everybody has moved on. They are still so obsessed. It baffles me. But it doesn't surprise me because I know that for them, when they had this opportunity with SCCOP funds, they knew that they had finally achieved their cash cow. We are going to milk this thing dry. I wouldn't be surprised, and I think people talked about already coming up with plans to build houses and buy property with that money. So when I took the decision, that's why they say, oh, the Secretary General was too powerful. Yes, I was, because that's the role of a Secretary General. I took the decision and I gave directives to every country. As you contribute money and as you mobilize resources, don't send a cent to SCCOP until we get to the bottom of this SCCOP thing. I need to know where this money is going. I need to know who is playing what role. And of course, that's when Tasang and Bianda and Harry and Bianda, together with John Akuro, started running the rumors that, oh, Millan has embezzled money. Have you ever seen evidence? No, but I've got evidence stacked of all the fraud and everything and the kickbacks that Tasang was getting. I do have evidence of the money that was being channeled to Cameroon and to Nigeria to them. So at the end of the day, it's I accuse you, you accuse me. I've got evidence, you don't have evidence. That's number one. But it doesn't matter whether there is evidence or not. We sat in the fourth conclave, the truth came out. Tasang sat there, was grilled by everybody. The veterans were there, everybody. They asked him, they grilled him, and the truth came out. Everybody knew that Tasang is the one who did. He was causing all the havoc, was embezzling money, was lying, was on social media telling all kinds of lies. The question is, why was he not penalized?
So during this period as the Secretary General, you left your job, you were not working, all your efforts were geared towards serving the revolution. How were you coping financially? What were your sources of income? How did you manage to sponsor yourself, your trip? Because we know as it is today within the revolution, nearly all the leaders are placed on some sort of, let's say, stipends for their upkeep. But during your time, there was nothing heard about that. How were you coping?
Actually, many of the so-called leaders today, one of the reasons, like I've told you, all this negativity and character assassination is because they thought we were actually making money out of this. And so the fight to take you down, oh, Millan is too powerful, we need to take him down. It's not about taking him down because he's too powerful, it's because I want to take his place. I think he's making a lot of money out of this. But what they don't realize is that we do have a liberation struggle still alive today because of the sacrifices that some of us made. Yes, so for 1 full year, I remember that I had left my last assignment in November of 2016, and I'd taken the decision that I was no longer going to renew. And so I just dedicated from November, December, all the way until January of 2018. I just invested it fully into the struggle. I hardly spent time in my house. I was always shuffling from one country to the other, building units, building little units, putting in place, trying to help facilitate, put leadership structures in place. That's what I did for 1 year and a few months. It wasn't so much about having lots of money or lots, no, it's just the sacrifice that we make, because we all have to make some kind of sacrifice. And I remember trips I'd have to pay, expensive flights from one part of the world to the other and sleep on people's couches. Or in some cases where I was lucky, they would rent a hotel room for me, but I would be in meetings all night until about 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And at 5 a.m., I'm supposed to leave the airport for the next trip. So you basically don't have the time to sleep. But those are sacrifices that you have to make. And just like in every struggle, every endeavor, you will have those who make sacrifices, you have those who come in and they benefit from it. And I think I need to address this whole idea of certain leaders having a stipend. I don't think it's a bad thing. And in fact, I think we need that. I've heard people condemn Sakoi Kome for, oh, he's been put on a stipend. My personal take is that somebody playing such a role needs to be on a stipend. When I organized the first conclave, this is one of the key facets, the pillars of the leadership that we were going to put in place in 2017. And I'd asked the veterans, they had been in this thing for 30 years, why is it that for the past 30 years you failed? They were not able to answer. Part of the problem is that people were in the struggle as a part-time thing. And I gave the example, you have somebody who is a professor. He teaches in some university. That's what he does. His whole time is focused on building his career academically, professionally, but also supervising his students, setting up exams, traveling for conferences and seminars and so on. Once in a while, every 6 months, he remembers on a Saturday morning, oh my God, there is the struggle. Then he writes a paper. or he does an interview. That's the struggle. That's what the struggle was all about. But you want to lead a true liberation struggle. You need people who eat, sleep, and breathe the struggle. So when I took time off in 2017 to build the structures like I did, it's because I understood that this thing was never going to go anywhere. It was going to die right there. La République was banking on the fact that we do not have the ability to structure ourselves and put in place structures that can make this thing move and stay going. At that initial stage, it wasn't possible. It was never going to happen. Somebody needed to make the sacrifice, and that's what I did.